All right, all right, all right. And we are live. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's your girl here. And this is Meet the Clinician. You know what? I have to figure out a different. I'm gonna work on this intro because every time I go live, even if I vlog, Meet the Clinician, healing and shadow work, it is good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's your girl here.
That's perfect because you don't know what time someone's going to log on. So for them,
That's true.
it could be good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So I think that's perfect.
It could. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Meet the Clinician. I'm your host, Larneka Lavalais, and I'm a LPC supervisor. And I am so grateful that you have chosen to spend part of your evening with us. Tonight, we're excited to feature Melinda Crawford, and she is a licensed professional counselor supervisor. She's the founder of MOH'S Counseling and Therapy in Dayton, Texas, with over 15 years of experience in education and mental health. Melinda is passionate about helping children, adolescents, adults, families heal from trauma, anxiety, grief, depression, and life's many transitions. Join us as we learn more about her journey into the counseling profession, her approach to therapy, and her mission to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health. Please, please, please help me give a warm virtual welcome to my good friend, Melinda Crawford. Hi, we need
Thank you. Thank you so
the
much,
studio
Larneka.
audience. We need the studio audience. You know what? I do appreciate you joining me on this good Sunday evening. Thank you so much. And I was thinking, I was trying to remember how long ago it's been that you and I have known each other. Because I want to say this was my second year in my former position. At the end of it, when you came on board, and when we found out each other were LPCs and I was a supervisor, you gave me one of my first, or you referred one of my first associates. And so it's like we've just been friends ever since. Like you've just been a great friend of me through all of my stuff that I've been going through, child. Whether it's health issues, whether I done broke up with some, you've been there for me, and I just want to let you know how much I truly do appreciate you. Therapists need people in their circle, and people in their circle that they can call their friend. I
Well,
appreciate you.
thank you. I feel the same way about you too. And it was 2021 when we first met. So going on 6 years, 6 years of a great friendship. Like our relationship, not only professionally, but it developed. You're one of my really best friends, and I appreciate you being in my circle too. Because as therapists, we take on a lot, not only on our personal lives, but in our professional lives too. So we have to have somebody that we can
Yes.
talk to that understands where we're at and where we're going.
That part indeed. It has been my pleasure. All right, well, let's go on and get started with these questions. All right, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, so first, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background because you have some interesting stories. I don't know what you're going to share with us, but tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to become a therapist.
Well, okay. Yeah, I do have an interesting background. It's kind of all over the place, but sometimes when we have ADHD, we are all over the place. So
Hey,
that's not a bad thing. We can use that to our advantage. So
that part.
when
Mm-hmm.
I graduated high school, I went into corrections. I was a correctional officer at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for 7 years while I worked my way through college. And so I went to college to be an attorney, I thought, but that never
Okay.
happened. That was okay. I graduated from Sam Houston State with a bachelor's of art in English, and I started teaching a week before I graduated. I started teaching at fourth grade,
Okay.
and I taught fourth grade for 3 years. And I continued to work at TDC on the weekends, doing visitation for death row offenders. And so I continued to do that. And so I taught for 3 years, and then I decided I was going to go back to school to get my master's in educational administration. And so I did with the principal certification, and then I taught for another 3 years. And during that time, one of my dear superintendents, and I could say that he become a good friend of mine as well, John Kirshner, he is the one that approached me and said, you know what? When I'm thinking about you, I'm thinking about you as a counselor, even though I had not went to school to be a counselor. And he said, so what do you think about that? And I said, I never have thought about that before. But that was back in 2007. So that sometimes it's the people that you meet. So with him, I went on a different path. I went back to school to Lamar University and graduated with my master's in counseling. And during that time, I became a high school counselor. So I taught for 6 years and I became a high school counselor. And from that, I was a counselor, a principal, a special ed specialist for the state for Windham School District. And then I became a counselor again. And then I took a year off from education when I had my daughter. And during that time, I studied for my LPC test. So I took my LPC test, and then I become an LPC, a therapist. And so it's kind of took me full circle. And then last August, I retired from public education and opened up my practice full time. I started my practice part time in 2022, just working on the side. And then last year, I retired from public education and I started up my practice full time, even though I have went back into public education part time. So I kind of flipped. So now I'm education part time and full practice full time.
Awesome. But you know what? You have earned it. So you can work it how you need to, okay? You have earned that. But the interesting thing, you worked in corrections. I worked in corrections. I could probably list several other clinicians who started off either clinicians or educators who started off working in corrections or some form of fashion at the prison. And that was something that had influence. For me, I wanted to be an attorney also, but I didn't, my study habits, I realize now that I'm more of a audio learner. Like I can listen to it and pick it up, but just trying to read stuff, child, you can forget about it. I can read, but I can comprehend better when I'm listening to that. I have to get that together. Like, well, how she got all this and she can't read? I can read. I just prefer to listen. Okay. That part. But I remember it was one of the inmates. One of the inmates made a suggestion that I become a counselor. And I'm like, child, I already got a master's degree. I'm not even trying to do that. But then further work in my church and kind of in the community and seeing things and, a couple more people mentioned like, you're a great listener. You should be a counselor. And then it was like, child, okay, I figured out how to study. I got a little time. The master's degree didn't cost that much back then. Again, I had figured it out because I had that first one. And that was it. So, yeah. So, would you say that even though, the gentleman suggested this, but anything in your corrections work may have shaped you as the therapist you are today? Anything, you experienced over there?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because being in corrections taught me not to judge people by their worst mistake. Because everyone's in prison not because they did something, they made a mistake. They made either bad choice or they made a mistake. And so therefore, when I was a correctional officer, I was 19 when I went.
Okay.
I was 19 years old, and some of the times the offenders that were in there were actually the ones that protect me from something happening that bad to me, especially the older ones. So, obviously they made mistakes. They were in there for a reason, but that does not define the type of person they are. And hopefully, I don't want my clients to be defined by anything that's happened to them in their life or any mistakes that they've made or any. And then as an educator, I realized that a lot of my students were affected by the things that had happened to them in their life. And so I wanted these childhood experiences shape your mental health, not only in the present, but in the future. And so corrections, as well as being in education, taught me a lot that I use today in my clinical practice.
Okay. Definitely, because I can tell you from being in education, now this is going into year number 18. I am comfortable talking with teens. You know, I know that's a population that a lot of people don't have that level of comfort. And it shows up when you talk to them. It's like, well, I've been to therapy, but they treat me like a baby, or, they just, looking at me or not really communicating. But I think having that experience, because I knew I wanted to be a therapist, then I backdoored and went into education, thinking that a school counselor and a therapist was the same thing. I didn't know. Now I know. I didn't know, but I can truly appreciate the time I spent in the classroom and what I continue to see, because it's like, oh, you learn about disorders, you kind of see it as it manifests, or the kids have their issues, and you understand, what road that could possibly lead them down. It doesn't mean that every kid that have issues going to prison, but we want to hope they don't. But we can
Right.
understand how it affects their decision making and just their livelihood and just their mental health. It affects a lot, with that. So yeah,
And
definitely.
with that, I believe in second chances. I believe that everyone deserves second chances because, we've all made mistakes. And so we want to learn from those mistakes and move forward. So
That part indeed. So Mo's Counseling and Therapy. Does Mo stand for something?
it sure does. Many people think that it stands for Melinda at the beginning, but it does not. And if I had put my children in the birth order, it would have been HMO, and I didn't want anyone to confuse that with insurance. So it
Okay.
actually is the first name of my children. So I have
Okay.
three daughters. And Mackenzie, Olivia, and Haley. That's my three daughters. And so I have one that's a teacher, one that's an emergency room nurse, and another
Nice.
one that is still trying to figure out what she's going to be when she grows up, even though as of yesterday, she was going to be a pediatric nurse like her sister,
Okay.
of course.
Go girl.
So,
Go girl.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that's what it stands for. So MOH'S Counseling and Therapy. And the reason I added counseling and therapy because a lot of people were calling me thinking I was a physical therapist and they were
Oh,
needing help on their body. And I'm like, that's not me. So I added counseling and therapy. So in the rural areas, sometimes we need to identify exactly what it is that we're doing over here at MOH'S.
that part indeed. So, what led you to open a private practice? Because, with our licensures and certifications and degrees, we can go work at clinics, we can work in higher ed, we could work pretty much anywhere, but why private practice?
Well, because I wanted to create a place, a safe place where people could come here and they could not just manage symptoms, but heal the root of their pain. Because a lot of times you have to find where is the root at? Where is the root of your pain? And it's not what is happening in the moment. It is what has happened to you in the past. And the past could be 5 years ago. For some of my clients, it is actually 60 something years ago. And so I want them to have that space and to feel like, okay, they have a space where I'm non judgmental and that I'm here to help you. And everything that they tell me, we're going to work through it and it's okay.
Indeed, indeed, having that space. I think a lot of times, and you mentioned a rural area, a lot of times we forget about the rural areas and the having resources available to them. I know that bigger cities are really attractive, and a lot of people will get, their licensures and things, and they want to go to bigger cities. But people often forget about the small towns. I am born and raised Port Arthur, Texas. Shout out to PA.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
And I often go back. I make certain, and there are other clinicians there. But for me, the things that I do, I make certain like, okay, what's Port Arthur looking like? What can I offer for the hometown? Because I know that the resources are truly limited. That's why for me, having a virtual office now is helpful because I can reach back to Port Arthur and provide services. And times I do outreach things there. Now Houston, I play in the streets of Houston as well. But to me, it's really saturated with a lot of resources. And so where if I had to pick, if someone called and said, hey, we got something here or there, I would choose the small town because I know about, the resources are limited there. And it's home. And I get to see my mama and my baby. So, yeah. All righty. So clinical approach. Are there any particular therapeutic modalities or approaches that you use most often?
Well, so recently in the past year, I became certified in EMDR and TFCBT. So I used to do primarily CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is known as talk therapy. And I would integrate some play therapy into that for the littles. We'll call them the littles. However, yes, we love the littles. But however, now that I'm certified in EMDR, the benefit of EMDR outweighs the benefit of CBT, TFCBT, if you are dealing with a client that has trauma. Because EMDR is for clients with trauma, and so is TFCBT. That's for the littles.
Now, somebody's asking what does those things mean? What is EMDR and other one? They're asking on TikTok. Thank you, TikTok, and thank you for all the likes. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So that is what EMDR stands for, and it's the way that you get your brain to reprocess traumatic events. It's not to get you to not remember them. So it's to get you to be able to reprocess something, because we know that when you're traumatized, your brain doesn't process events the way it's supposed to. You kind of get stuck in the bottom. So we go back through those traumatic events and we figure out how they're affecting your life now, what emotions are attached to them, and we take the negative thoughts, the negative beliefs that you have about yourself, and we reprocess that event to where you will have positive beliefs about yourself when you're thinking about that event. It is life-changing for clients that may have been coming to therapy for, I'll have an example of since 2022. And when I started EMDR, it was life-changing for them. So I really, if I could do one modality, which I can't because it doesn't fit for all clients, but if I had to pick one today, I would pick EMDR. Now, TFCBT is trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what I do for the littles. So if you have a younger child that's been traumatized, the goal is to give them coping skills, to work with the parents, to give the parent coping skills, and to go to the narrative story of the event that happened. And so that it's kind of like watching that scary movie over and over again where it's not so scary. And the great thing about going through the narrative story, writing your own narrative, at the end you get to share that with your parent or your guardian. So that way you are working together so that both of them can move forward through this traumatic event that affects both.
Awesome. Okay. Good. I can say recently for myself, I have had the opportunity to experience EMDR and shadow work. And for me, they truly go hand in hand. Now I know I have a nice therapist and I have a shadow work coach. And so I piggyback off of those two things, and I can say it has been life changing. It truly has been very helpful for me, indeed. So you said that if everybody is not a candidate for EMDR, how do you determine who would best be an EMDR person?
So, for example, maybe I have a client that is experiencing grief, the loss of a spouse. Maybe this client has never experienced any traumatic event before. And the reason they're coming to therapy is because they're processing grief, So grief is normal. Grief is part of a journey that we're on. And so to think that I'm going to try to reprocess that traumatic event with them would not be helpful. A lot of times I use it for clients that have several different traumatic events that have happened to them, and they see the past, and it's probably buried down inside of them, and they don't even realize how this event has affected them. And so it doesn't have to be anything like, I mean, trauma is different. You know, everybody thinks, oh,
Yeah.
trauma, it's something like, it could be bullying in school. It could be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it could be maybe you lost your parent as a child and you never reprocessed that, you know, losing your parent, and maybe you blamed yourself your whole life. And then now as an adult, you're still blaming yourself and you don't
Yeah.
realize that you're having those negative beliefs about yourself. So we change them to positive beliefs. So, like,
Awesome.
okay, it wasn't my fault that my parent passed away.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's a good thing about this work that we do, because there's so many different ways we can approach a client to help them with different things that they're dealing with. You know, it's not one size fit all. We know that clients have all these sorts of things, and things that occur that may be traumatic for one may not be traumatic for the other, or how they respond to the trauma or react to it is totally different. So I think that's pretty good. I think that's really good. So, populations that you serve, is there a particular population or group that you especially enjoy working with?
Well, typically, I'm recently, as of September the 1st, I'm going to move toward working with primarily adults.
Okay.
Not completely, but as there will be times that I'm not going to take teens or children in my clinic anymore. I'm going to work with primarily adults. I still will take some, but not all of them. But so I'm basically moving away from to doing more adults with EMDR that are facing trauma and grief and major life transitions versus young children and teens.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Um, what do you find most rewarding? I guess with the EMDR, what do you find most rewarding with working with those particular clients using that modality?
I think when you see clients that have been struggling so long, for so long with the trauma and the grief and everything that's, and they get that hope back, they regain hope, they regain confidence, and they realize, hey, you know what? Does not have to affect me in this way for the rest of my life, and that I can feel the joy, because sometimes through the pain we do feel joy, but in order to get to that other side we have to feel the pain. And so it's
Yeah.
really just the hope and the confidence that the client regains after, maybe it could be, you know, years, it could be months, that they don't feel that anymore and they're able to feel that again.
Yes, yes. I think that is, that's the joy in the work for me, to see the transition, the change, the healing that takes place, the growth. A lot of times people come in, they want, something different. They really don't know what to expect in therapy. And sometimes it takes time. If we could do it in 1 or 2 sessions, that would be great, but typically it takes time, and sometimes people run away from the pain because they don't want to relive something that may have been harmful to them, but they know they want change. So seeing the change, seeing the transition, I think that makes me keep doing what I'm doing. Some days I might be like, Lord, I'm tired. Ooh, but you know what? To know that I'm helping somebody that's going through it, even working in education in the counseling role, uh, seeing some kids, parents, helping them, to connect, helping them to get the resources and different things that they need. I find that very rewarding. Very, very rewarding. All right, so you've been doing your work, and uh, you have your practice and folks coming in and everything. But what about the people who don't come? There is still a stigma around mental health. Um, why do you think that is? Because we were saying on another live, nowadays you can see stuff on TV or shows, or the therapy language is spoken. You can probably find a book somebody went to therapy. You can watch a podcast like this one. They talking about therapy. You have so many things out there, but people are still not going. What do you think? What's going on with that?
I think there's still the stigma of asking for help. Is it brings a lot of shame, and it brings a lot of weakness, or because someone needs help, there must be something wrong with me, or there must have been something wrong with my parents, or there must have been something wrong. Just because someone needs help, that's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. It is the strongest decision that someone can either make for themselves, or in the case of children, for someone else, is to get them the help so that moving forward, they can be healed and that they can live a healthy, productive life. And so I think that the stigma is still out there, definitely, especially in rural areas like, in Dayton, we are growing at a rapid pace, but even around surrounding areas and stuff, there's a lot of stigma about talking openly. It could be a cultural thing. It could be, a learned behavior from when they were growing up, and sometimes I've actually had several clients that have had negative experiences with the therapist that they had before. And that's a real big deterrent too. And I hate to have to say that, but that's the truth.
It is. It is. With my teenagers, they will say like they just treat me like a baby, or you may have had them going in their teenage years and now they're adults, and because they had a bad experience when they were teens, they didn't try to go and see anybody else until maybe things got a little worse for them, and then now they finally trying to go and get some help. And so, that truly can be discouraging. Because every therapist doesn't fit with every client or every client and every day. Just like you try on shoes. I know sometimes when the resources are limited, people feel like, well, this is the only therapist in town. So I either go to this one or I don't go at all. Guess what? I ain't going at all. That's why I'm kind of happy that we do have the virtual. I don't know why I'm plugging it today, but I'm happy we do have the option of having virtual, because you can see a therapist even in your town, in your way you can catch the bus or drive. You may have someone there and maybe you don't mesh well, you don't really connect well with that particular therapist. That's not the end. There are plenty therapists that you can connect with. You just may have to drive if you're capable, or you can go online and get one virtual. Sometimes people feel a little way about that because they may be more comfortable with someone that's from their town or lives in their town. But really, you can see anybody in the great state of Texas.
And I do too. I do virtual and in person. So some of my clients go all the way to, I've had Beeville, Arlington, Plano.
Okay.
So I have a lot of Liberty, New Caney, Port Arthur. I have a lot of clients that are virtual too. So if you can't drive here, you can click on a link and log on, and it's kind of similar to what we're doing today, and talk to a therapist.
That part. On TikTok, someone said therapy is tough. It's hard trying to unlearn what our what is our social norm. So it's hard trying to unlearn what we think is normal. Yeah, yeah. It's just like saying I got some problems. I went through something. Let me keep it quiet. Let me just pray about it and keep it going. And that's praying about it. Yes, please do that. But there's also help out there. There's also, trained professionals that you could talk to. If my arm broke, I can pray about it all day. But if nobody can't come and set it and do what I need to do with it, I'm gonna be in trouble. So that part. So yeah. So what do you think that we can do, as clinicians? We're out here. What can we do to help reduce some of that stigma?
Well, I think kind of piggybacking off of what you just said about your arm being broken, we need to treat mental health like physical health rather than, it's like you can't see it. So there's not a problem because you can't see it. If your arm is broke, obviously, it's hanging, the bone's sticking out, but it's in your brain. So just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And we also need to talk openly about mental health. Therapists, we go to therapy. I mean, we do, and it's smart. It's what a professional therapist should do. It's go to therapy to talk about all the things that they're going through, or just being a therapist, because we hold a lot, as therapists. And
Yeah.
also listening to our clients without judgment. When they come into my office, I want them to know that, hey, this is a relaxed environment, a safe space. I'm not judging you. And I'm here to listen and to help you and try to look at things from a different perspective, and get you the best help that you deserve
Yeah.
in my space. And if I can't help you, or if I feel like you're not a good fit, or maybe somebody else can help you, I do refer clients out, because one of the things I do not do couples counseling. I do not do it. So when I have people that need couples counseling, I have a really good set of couples counselors that I send my clients to.
Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. And you are definitely right with that, to make certain that we're taking care of our clients, because word of mouth stretches wide. If a client had a good experience with you and their friends are going through something, they're going to tell their friends about you. They're going to be like, hey, you go to this therapist over here. I was able to get some help. They helped me real good. And I believe that truly can be helpful. That truly can be helpful. All right. So with all of the comings and goings that you mentioned that you do, self-care. What do you do for self-care?
Well, what I love to do is to travel. That is kind of like my new thing. So I have a really good friend of mine, Carla King.
Mhm.
She told me, look, Melinda, this was back in 2019. She said, you need to travel. I promise you're going to be addicted. If you start, you're not going to want to stop. So I was, because I've never went anywhere. I'd never been on an airplane until I was 43. I never really traveled. I mean, anywhere out of the great state of Texas. Maybe once when I was little, but not anything that I really can remember. So I started traveling. So that's what I do. I look forward to trips. I plan my trips out. And so when I'm having those rough days where I'm thinking, okay, well, what's happening? When am I going to get a break? I already could tell you right now, my next big
Yeah.
trip is on Christmas Day.
Okay, girl. Okay.
And the summer.
Nice.
So yes, I love it. I think it's important for everyone to do self-care, take care of themselves, and continuing to care for yourself, because you're always caring for others, and you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mhm. Indeed, indeed, indeed. I know there's some self care that I enjoy doing whenever we meet up.
I enjoy it too, friend. I enjoy it too.
Therefore, therefore,
We definitely
indeed,
need to put that on
indeed.
the calendar.
I know, because it's like, yes,
Yes.
very relaxing indeed, indeed. All right, cool. This has been, how you feeling about the questions?
I
Doing
feel
good? You
great. I
feeling
think
good?
this is, I think this was a great opportunity. I just want to thank you, Larneka, for letting me get on here today and do this podcast with
Oh,
you. It's a great opportunity for me to really just evaluate myself, and maybe even reevaluate what I'm doing, and some things that I may actually want to change just from doing this podcast, because that's what it's about
okay.
anyway, right? Always trying to be
Yeah.
better, change what you're doing, and grow, because you know what
Hmm.
Native Americans say, you ever stop learning, you'll die. So we just keep growing, we just keep learning, and healing is possible. Your story isn't over. I feel like my 50th year of life, which is about to be 51, but was my best life ever. It was the best
Okay.
of my life. And so I just want people to realize that asking for help isn't a weakness, it's a step. It's a step toward becoming the strongest version of yourself. And asking for help is
Indeed.
sometimes what we need.
That part indeed. Somebody suggested I take a solo trip. I did too a couple years back. I have to get my coins together to go again. But yes, I did too. I went to Vegas and I went on a cruise by myself and I had a really, really good time. So now I
Okay.
have to collect my coins. I need to get the coins together to go. All right. So, what advice would you give future clinicians? Somebody's like, hey, I look up to you. I see what you're doing. I think, I want to be like Ms. Crawford, someday I want to become a therapist and own my own business. What advice would you give to someone who is studying counseling or pursuing a career in mental health?
My advice is number one, get you some friends that are therapists. Get a good circle of friends because Larneka right here was in my circle and she helped me so much. And now I have a huge circle of friends that are therapists and we help each other. Also, second piece of advice, take the risk. Okay, you're going to feel like, oh, I'm so nervous about doing this. Am I going to do the right thing? What about opening up my own practice? Everything we do is a risk. And so if you don't take a risk, what do you have?
I don't know
Nothing.
what you're gonna be able to do. That part indeed. All right, well, great, great, great. Well, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to say as we get ready to close out?
I would just like to say that if you're not familiar with EMDR, please look it up. There's videos on YouTube, there's books that you can read, because if you are a clinician and you're looking for a modality that works for your clients that have trauma, EMDR is it. So, and the training can be kind of expensive, but it's going to be worth it, not only for you, but especially for your clients.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Melinda, once again for joining me on this Sunday for this podcast. I truly appreciate you as always, and I know you do some great work. And I just want the world to know all these great clinicians. Meet the Clinician is really introducing the world to people who I know are doing some phenomenal things, and to help break that stigma and to encourage others to either get help or become helpers themselves. We don't know. All right, so if you are just now joining us, we're getting ready to close out. If you missed it, you can catch the replay on YouTube. Give me about a couple weeks and we will be on the podcast platforms. We got Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. I'm probably missing somebody, child, but if you got some podcast capabilities, you can catch us. Thank you so much once again, and y'all have a great evening.